Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Product School webinar. Thanks for joining. My name is Sarah, and today I will be sharing with you some must-have tools for product managers that will help you contribute to the success of your product. Before we start, a little bit about my experience. I'm currently a product manager at CNN Digital, the world's most powerful digital news brand, and have previously worked for Thomson Reuters, which is also a leading world provider for news and information-based tools for professionals. In the past 6 years, I've really enjoyed working in product roles within large companies where I get to help create digital products, getting to use technology to develop news experiences and digital media that is enjoyed by millions of users and impact people's lives. A little bit of background about myself. I graduated with a degree in biological sciences. Now, that's a major that gave me the opportunity to study life in its widest sense, including the natural world, all the living things in it, and down to our own human microscopic DNA. So I found that really fascinating, and I learned about myself is that I enjoy getting to the anatomy level of things and figure out how everything works, which takes me to my next point um, to explain how much science can like have in common with product management. So from science, you can learn creative thinking, problem solving, and so much skills like analytical organization skills that you'll need in such a role. So generally in life, if you find yourself enjoying these type of things, this is a perfect fit for you because you get to practice, learn, and grow a ton. So with great ability comes great responsibility. And you may be already aware that the types of responsibilities this role has depends on different factors, including the industry you're working in, the company size, the primary goals of your company, strategic principles, and also the stage of the life cycle of the product you're responsible for. So with all this, having said this, stay tuned to get to know how you can get a toolkit that will help you navigate through this journey. So here's a view on what I'll be covering in this webinar. At the end of the talk, we'll have a comprehensive view on a tool that will help you with strategic planning, which is the objectives key results, distinctive tools and valuable ones for different phases of product development. That is product discovery and then optimization. And lastly, we'll get to cover some knowledge domains, which are necessary to uh, guide the judgment of a product manager throughout this journey for making better decisions. So let's jump into it. So particularly in big companies, from my experience, you'll find that within the organization, there's multiple products and multiple markets and propositions that will actually be forming some sort of challenges for this role. You'll find out that the product activities are fragmented across the business, and you're actually collaborating with experts and stakeholders who are handling the different functional areas that they master. So you'll have to kind of coordinate the day-to-day activities and the workflows that happen for the product, at the same time provide a strategic direction, because ultimately you're not only managing, you're driving change and taking your product forward somewhere in the future. So as a result, the type of challenges you'll face is you will be dealing with competing and conflicting priorities on a daily level that have to be balanced. And this is where the first tool comes in handy. And I'm not talking about a tool to prioritize a backlog, which we need a tool for that. But I'm referring to a tool where you can get to prioritize the direction of the focus areas of where the product will end up. So where do we begin and how do we focus on the most valuable things? So objectives and key results, we refer to them OKRs. This is the tool we use, and because the answer to this question is not a list of ideas you have in your mind of how you will improve the product. It's not a list of features or a roadmap that you had worked on previously. This is a powerful prioritization tool. Think about it as a GPS navigation system for prioritizing your work. The benefits from this tool is that it addresses all the challenges that I've just mentioned. It gives you the alignment you need to make every other team pushing in the same direction. It gives you the focus to do the most important things and actually deprioritize a lot of things from your to-do list. And also, it gives you the ability to transparently communicate within the larger organization how you're pacing against the priorities you had. So to summarize, the product objectives should be aligned with the business strategy. So this is something that you need to kind of align with your focus areas, and you need to pick a target market, prioritize one persona or one user segment, because if everything is a priority, nothing really is. And make sure to set a cadence of clear communication that actually gives a view on what the team is focusing on, and you get to communicate that across the organization. And lastly, this is and why this is a powerful tool, because you get as a product team to celebrate business results rather than a product release where you can actually have a business impact. Cool. So here's the more of a definition of what the objectives are and how different they are from key results when we define them. Objectives are qualitative and they answer what do we want to do or focus on. The key results are the measures and they're quantitative of how we will know that we've met this objective. So let's check an example. To give an example for a digital product, let's say you're looking for driving growth and you realize that traffic is doing well, is going well, and you get to choose an objective that helps you drive that growth you're after. So this is an example here. So you focus on driving quality traffic to the website. Why? Because you want to improve retention, and retention is a proven lever of actually business growth. So a key result, how are we going to measure that? You'll pick a metric, for example, conversion, and that's quantified from a baseline, and you can actually measure that and track progress. So a key result here in this example, I gave a metric. It can be a milestone also, because then you can have a deadline and you can set it as a way to track how you delivered on that key result. And there's a tip here I've added because this is an activity you'll get to do every half year or quarter, depending on how frequent your goals change. Using formulas will actually help you define unified and mainstreamed OKRs. So under these examples, you'll find some formulas and words on how you actually form these statements. Now, it's really important to differentiate between OKRs and KPIs. One would say we already have KPIs in place. Why do we need another set of objectives? Again, this is a key difference for why we set OKRs. It's that because we're driving the product towards some place in the future. So the intention here is that it's a strategic direction. It's aggressive usually and ambitious, whilst a KPI, it's an actual measurement of an attainable business output for representing a process in place or a team output. for a project that's already up and running. So we think about KPIs as health metrics. So I'm going to go back to the same example and show a KPI on the same OKR. So in this example, monitoring the website traffic in general will be our health metric, or a dashboard that we'll need to check daily or monthly, depending on how we report progress. But this is something that we need to keep in mind and differentiate between it and between our strategic OKR. Perfect. This is, I think, my last slide on OKRs. It's more of a recap and a reminder for defining great objectives. There's a big emphasis on focusing on the life cycle stage that your product is in. Because the OKR can represent different focus areas. So you can start by asking yourself within your company, what's the primary focus of the product management function? Why did the company have a product manager role or function in the first place? Is it focusing on market fit expansion? And you'll get these answers from the business strategy that the company puts out. Is it focusing on diversifying its products lines, focusing to grow into an adjacent market or product? This is where your OKR will be geared towards market fit or expansion. Versus for growth, you'll be tasked with creating and capturing additional value from an existing proposition, where you'll use fat growth strategies, etc. And the last example of how different OKRs can be representing. If your focus is scale, for example, you'll be optimizing workflows, removing blockers. This is just a quick view of the different goals, primary goals that function may have, and make sure we define the right objectives that match the stages we are in. Perfect. So now we're going to move to the second section of this talk. I'm going to start with a quick explanation on the difference between discovery and optimization, and then we'll get to cover valuable tools for each. Assuming we have, I'm going to go just one slide before. So now we have the objectives and key result. The direction is there. We have a specific target market in place, and the persona is clear. The objectives and key results will actually influence how we focus on product development. Are we focused on discovery versus optimization? Discovery is a work that is done to establish new market fits for an existing user segment or a new user segment through iteration and improvement. We do a lot of market research in it, and we gather macro level insights, and there's a focus that's done on learning. Because when you start discovery, your outputs are not clear and it's not straightforward. This is where we'll get into the details of this a bit later. While if your focus is optimization, you're trying to grow an existing proposition or drive more value for your product, it's usually done on a product that has already market fit and it's live with live traffic. And you're making changes or adjustments you have in mind to actually make the product more desirable or more efficient, for example. And it's worth mentioning it's ongoing. The outputs are clear when you start this step. This is a quick differentiation between both. Now jumping into product discovery. As I said, it's not a straightforward process, but I'm going to put it in a guided way or step-by-step way of what we're doing. So we're looking to identify user problems. We're trying, why are we doing this work? We're trying to learn in less time. Before actually building something, we're de-risking it from different factors of risks that can come in the way of the success of the product. So let's start picking some tools for product discovery. So as I said, focusing on digital consumer products, you are looking for problems to solve. And it's worth checking with the user segment that you've prioritized what areas or problem pain points they have before taking your product discovery forward. So the tool we use for this is user interviews. This is a structured research tool that allows us to uncover pain points and underlying motivation from these users. We're looking for answers and insights that will help us formulate a theory or a hypothesis, so we can use that as a basis to build our discovery on. So before jumping into user interviews, there's a lot of homework that's done into just like defining what exploratory questions do we have in mind that we're going to unlock and get out from these sessions. So while user interviews gives us that directional insight, there's a lot of more validation that has to be done. And how do we validate that problem pain point of user segment? We can use qualitative surveys for this. And this is also a research tool that will help you uncover trends on a wider scale. It allows you to dive deeper into the problem and further develop and refine the hypothesis from the results that you get out of the survey. Now, I'm going to go one slide back again. So while we are still in the problem phase, it's really important to highlight that before jumping into any sort of solutioning or ideation, which is the next step, there's some work that has to take place of really understanding the market that you're operating in. So this is market research on a macro level, where you will need to understand who's solving this problem that you've identified currently, who's solving it well, and what are the gaps in the value chain that is available for users. With that being done, assuming that is done, I'm happy to like now share the next tool, which is design sprints. This is a fun step for those who enjoy problem solving. This is brainstorming possible solutions. Again, possible. Nothing is going into development yet. Usually, this is done as a block of 1 week times work, where cross-functional team members come in to tackle this specific problem that you've identified. So it's called a sprint because it requires a lot of prioritization, ideation, and sketching even. So the outputs out of a sprint are usually either sketches, or if you're working with your product designer, you'll be lucky to get some either low fidelity or high fidelity prototypes, which are literally a form of a functioning or workable wireframe of what the solution is that you will take forward. So the tool, so these wireframes or the prototypes are actually a tool by themselves. And this is the last tool that I'm mentioning today about product discovery. This tool will help you validate different types of product risks. And it's a really powerful tool. It helps you reduce a lot of uncertainty and release with confidence, because before a prototype is in development, you can use it to validate value with users themselves, or run them through users and user interviews and capture usability issues. You can run them with stakeholders and understand what viability you're bringing to the business problem. And lastly, it's a powerful place to be in to work with your tech partner on the feasibility of this solution that you came up with, where they get to actually influence the type of prototype or how it works, how it functions. You'll get all that handy, and that will help you move into a more smoother product development phase. Great. So tackling that, like, again, this, when I said that it's not a step-by-step or straightforward process, it's because as we've seen here with a prototype, we went back and used a tool which is user interviews. So it's a lot of back and forth, and you need to apply different tools as you see useful, depending on the primary purpose of the step you're focusing on. So this is a final look of all the tools we've covered for product discovery. I hope you find them valuable. And this is really fun as an activity to do. I'm going to move now to product optimization, which is quite different, as I said, from discovery. Product optimization is done again with some change that you have in mind, and usually within a product discovery learning phase, you can come up with different ideas that you think, oh, let me just try and just deploy this on the product. I think it will actually help us get get the value from it, because with the different learnings, you might end up doing both discovery and optimization. Really important to just prioritize the work you're doing to be able to move the most valuable things into development. So with product optimization, I'm going to talk about A/B testing, which is usually known as a quantitative tool that will help you measure if the change you're doing is actually valuable. Does it prove to work best than what's available currently on the site? Worse or no difference? So this is where we get to measure and use a scientific approach on testing our hypothesis. And here I'd like to share a tip and a story maybe about how changes on the product has to be done once at a time. Uh, by doing more than one change at the same time in a test or an experiment, you really risk getting screwed up data or unconclusive results. And this is something um, I've actually found, and so it's a tip and a note to self. So what there we were working on a test plan, and there was one additional UI change, which is very minor. So it's more like an icon of a video play button that's on the site. This is a minor change that was not part of our initial hypothesis. So that was in the experiment running on a variant. The results that came back showed that there's some consumption behavior that has changed due to this additional variant, and this is something we were able to identify because we recognized that there's an additional variant on the test itself. So it's really important that when we're doing these experiments, we're only doing one change at a time, and we're actually doing it in a structured or a hypothetical way. So the type of product optimization tools that we've covered is quantitative research with the A/B or multivariate testing. And there's an additional tool that I'd like to mention that's used on digital publications, which is headline and image testing. And this is really cool because it's live and automated. It's really smooth to use, where you can test multiple title variations for an article or a piece of content, and it's quite automated that the tool itself can help pick the variant that performs best and default it on the site. My last section for the talk is knowledge domains. Now, Making decisions on the way is really important to maintain progress with the different steps that we've just mentioned. Um, so what are the different domain areas that a product manager should maintain in terms of knowledge? So there's organization knowledge to be influential, collaborative across different teams. You need to understand how the dimensions of the company, business and functional departments work, because you're leading without authority. You need to understand the ins and outs of how each team performs to get to um, work with these different stakeholders. Industry is another angle as well. So this is quite an important one because it's a shifting landscape. You need to keep up with the relevant trends and understand how that's impacting your strategy or your objectives overall. And finally, the product. You're definitely going to be an expert in knowing your users, your target market, and how the product works inside out. So general tips I'd like to share on how we can maintain such domain areas. Make sure that like activities are periodically scheduled in your agenda. Like that could include a regular cadence of meeting with current or potential new users. If you're joining a new team, make sure to ask good questions and document these answers. They will come in handy to actually use and validate even further. And here's a nice sticky note that I usually use as a reminder of how good questions can look like. So this is quite comprehensive, and asking different types of questions will get you different types of answers. So this is quite important. This toolkit was done in a way that it matches a specific goal that you will have, and it's quite standard for product managers. Review your toolkit always and add to it based on your needs. Here's the final look of the topics and the tools that we've mentioned today. I hope you found them useful and empowering. This was an overview on the tools on high level. If you're interested to know more in depth, here's some relevant book recommendations that I've added here, and good reads that I personally enjoyed. So thank you so much for joining. And if you'd like to connect on LinkedIn, here's a link to my profile. Thank you so much.